Gentlemen, good evening from the Sausalito Yacht Club in Sausalito, California. This is a continuation of our Wednesday night speaker series. My name is Tom Kowalski, and I'm just going to make a few announcements before I hand over the program to Yacht Club member Dick Enerson, who will introduce Mr. Holland. At the club, we are continuing to be gradually reopening under the COVID relaxation. We are racing. New sailing program is up, and our dinner and bar service is slowly expanding. Earlier this month, we had an interesting presentation by a French kayaker, Mr. Cyril Delemieux, who will be kayaking solo from San Francisco Bay to Hawaii. He is on schedule to depart San Francisco Bay on the 30th of the month, a low tide from Horseshoe Cove, and I plan to be on my boat escorting him out the Golden Gate Bridge and to take some photographs. In continuation with our speaker series in June, Brian Crawford, Marin County resident and author, will be speaking about a wreck off of Duxbury Reef, off of Bolinas, in November 1914 on the schooner Hanalei, which unfortunately had a tragic ending. If you're not familiar with Bolinas, it's just north outside the Golden Gate Bridge along the coast. Mr. Holland has graciously donated one of his books with a signature on it to our Youth Sailing Foundation, and that will be part of a fundraiser that we will have shortly. And in summation, also, because we expect to have many questions for Mr. Holland, we would ask that you enter these into the chat selection at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and that way we can all have the questions answered, delivered and answered individually without any overlay and extended conversation. So that being said, I will hand this over to Sausalito Yacht Club member Dick Enerson to introduce Mr. Ron Holland.
Thanks, Tom. Ron and I have known each other for thousands of years, it seems like, but I think we started in the early 70s when he was a young boat bum come up from the land of the wrong white crowd to make his fortune. And the first event I really remember was the SORC, and he was an improbable and I was in a one-tonner, but we've just known each other for a long time and sailed together, particularly recently since he now lives in Vancouver, BC, and that's my favorite cruising ground. But, as you will know from his book, he is a yacht designer. He's not a naval architect, because formal education has never been something that Hello, am I talking too loud for somebody? He's self-taught basically, and self-taught very, very well. He and our mutual friend Doug Peterson ruled the IOR world in the 70s and into the 80s, and he's very cleverly made the transition into big, elegant sailing yachts, and frankly a couple of motorboats too. But that's what the book is all about, and that's some of what he'll tell you about. And I think it's time for Ron. Go.
Thank you, Dick, and thank you for the invitation, Sausalito Yacht Club team. Great to be here, because the reality is Sausalito was hugely influential in my boating, designing life. So I start off. I'm going to cover a wide variety of stuff, but I wanted to start off with this photograph of the America's Cup in Auckland. If you'd have told me in my teens that one day New Zealand will have the America's Cup in Auckland, I'd have bet you anything was never going to happen, because this was a fight between the rich guys in New York and the rich guys in London. Kind of, well, Scotland for half the time. But it is an amazing reality. And I'm going to go into this a little bit more depth for a few minutes of this show. But I wanted to start off with this. But then I start off with the next most important thing, which I met in New Zealand, I met a San Francisco sailor, George Cascadden, who invited me to join him in the Tahiti race in 1970. I'm 20 years of age, 21. And so I came to the bay, and my first job was get Spirit ready for the Tahiti race. Now, I could spend an hour or two on this, but I'm going to try and not bore you to death. But this was a hell of a story, because this boat, Spirit, had been designed. The way it was designed was to trick Olin Stevens, the preeminent yacht designer still in the world, even though he died a few years ago. So Cascadden had the idea for this very simple little ocean racing boat. And when he described what he wanted, a flush deck, 33-foot narrow fractional rig boat, to Olin was happy to do it until he heard Cascadden was going to take it across the ocean. And the story goes that Olin actually refused the design fee, because he said, you've described a boat to me that isn't an ocean boat. I don't want you taking some bay dinghy thing across the ocean. Well, before I got involved in this San Francisco life project, Spirit had done cross the Pacific, cross the Atlantic, fast jet race, Honolulu race. So the Cascadden family, with some really competent crew members, took this boat everywhere. So for me, and I know about this, I'm in New Zealand, the other end of the earth, but I know about this story. I mean, I'm reading every magazine I can get my hands on. So I know about Spirit. I know about Stevens and the story. So I'm thrilled to be coming here to race Spirit to Tahiti. So I like the idea that I'm doing this presentation this evening at the Sausalito Yacht Club, because, hey, I was here, guys, for years. I love, it's my second home. So here we do, we race Spirit across Tahiti, 23 days. Now, Spirit, no headroom, no radio, no navigation lights, no toilet, no nothing. You know, but 6 of us, including Doug Peterson, by the way, raced Spirit for 23 days to Tahiti. And here we are finishing, overlapped with Misty in Tahiti. Now, you're 21 years of age, you've grown up on the beach in New Zealand, and this is where I ended up at 21. What more in life could you want? So anyway, I could go on an hour about this story too, but let's keep going. I wanted to talk about America's Cup because some of the club members asked about America's Cup. So I was fortunate in the mid-'80s to be invited to have now, the New Zealand America's Cup started because Alan Bond won in Newport. If that hadn't happened, New Zealand wouldn't have been trying. But if you're a Kiwi sailor and the Aussies just won the cup, you go, geez, if those guys can do it, we can do it. So not only did Alan Bond and Ben Lex and John Bertrand shake up the world by taking the America's Cup away from Newport, they opened the door to the Kiwis. And who would have thought, my first image, bloody cup is in Auckland right now. Unbelievable. So anyway, 87 was Fremantle because Bondi took it there. And the prior to the America's Cup, design for me was a guess, a kind of artistic sketch on a bit of paper and copying what had gone on before in yacht design. The America's Cup for the Kiwis opened up a budget that allowed us to do some research. And this is our America's Cup contender, Kiwi Magic, being tank tested at a large scale model facility in England. The rules of the Cup at the time didn't allow a foreign country to build or design outside the geographic boundaries of the country. But they said, look, we'll let the Kiwis, they obviously need all the help they can get. So we'll let them have designers not living in New Zealand, and they can use the facility of this tank testing in Southampton, England. And we could also use a wind tunnel in Stockholm, Sweden. So myself, Laurie Davidson, and Bruce Farr, you could say that none of us were scientific designers. We were all kind of a bit seat of the pants. But now we've got a budget for the first time to play in a research laboratory. So here we are in Stockholm, Sweden Institute doing wind tunnel testing on wing keel. And now I thought this would be fun to put in. So while we have the budget to go beyond our guess, yacht design, do a sketch and hope to hell it's fast, we still were in the world of 1986, no computers. Hey guys, no cell phone, no computers. Facts. Here's one of our first faxes. We thought we were on the rocket ship to the moon. Faxing, you could send drawings through the telephone line. So we were all so excited and proud to be high tech with our faxes. 1986. And this is what we created. We created the fastest 12-meter yacht ever built, controversially built in fiberglass, and won more races in this campaign than any other 12-meter before or since. So that's an introduction to New Zealand. And this is one of my guys in the office sent this to the Kiwis in Fremantle when they were continually winning. So here's another fax. Hey guys, go for it. Fax down to the boys in Fremantle. And then here's the San Francisco shot. Kiwis losing the bloody thing in San Francisco, 2013. And then Bermuda. And then back in Auckland, kicking ass, I would say, with this one. This was a serious victory. So I've been lucky, I think, to see this whole story unfolding, since 1986. And what will happen next, who knows? It's still not decided, but I'm happy to talk about that later. So then I'm going to go now to meeting Dick Anderson. This is about Maxi yachts. So I was doing small race boats, the most famous from San Francisco, of course, Imp. And slowly the world got richer. So the boats got bigger. If you get an invitation to do a bigger boat, you got to say yes. So here's two of my Maxi boats racing off Florida, Kilo and Condor. Impressive. And here we go. We're racing Kilo around the Sausalito, England, off Cowes, like it's a 30-foot dinghy. Now, so I'm looking here at my business card. Oh no, this is yeah. Look at that. Well, I had Kilo and the logo on the transom on my business card for a while, because getting a Kilroy to tell me to design this new kilo. It's a pretty big deal, you can imagine. Now I want to jump to the present. So this is the last Ron Holland Design. Hey, are you sure about this, Ron? Probably. And it's a schooner. What more do you want than to finish a lifelong career by designing a schooner? Hey, I'm thrilled to share this with you guys. So it's a schooner that's high tech from a sailing point of view, but it's not a ultra modern boat. It's got some classic elements to it, but it's not going to be slow. It's going to be a fast boat. And I take you through the process a little bit here. So it's a combination. I'm still doing sketches, but now it's all computer-aided design, of course. But my approach really is an artistic approach still, even though we had the experience of the tank testing and the wind tunnels, and that is positive influence. Young people that are approaching yacht design today may not do any sketching, where it would be more likely to be in a computer environment, which is another way to do it. But I'm lucky to have made the transition from the kind of Olin Stevens era before computers to now seeing what young computer literate designers are doing. That was kind of fun to be alive in that period. Okay, this is a three-dimensional drawing of the schooner. And here's more three-dimensional. So it's all computer now. You know, we couldn't do this when we did the Kiwi Magic America's Cup boat. And so in the computer environment, to the benefit of the design, the builder, and the owners, because the owners get to see before the reality really what it's going to look like. And for me, it's a thrill to have the ability to do this. And actually, I'm moving my camera here to show you my chief designer, who just happens to be a Kiwi girl. Laura did this drawing. So the story starts off in New Zealand, and it stays in New Zealand. So long as the guys keep winning the America's Cup, hey, we'll still be in the news. Anyway, this is back to the schooner, the last Ron Holland Design that I'm happy to show you all. And this is another person present on our show. This is an English marine artist living in Vancouver who just came on the screen. John Horton is the image of the schooner. Why can't we turn the bloody phone off? We don't know where the phone is. It's my phone, I know. Sorry, guys. Anyway, they gave up. That's it. See, we just missed another client. Damn it. Anyway, this is a schooner off Bora Bora. Hey, what more do you want to finish your career than this? So there's a couple of, I'm going to show a few variation things now. This is the biggest yacht we ever did. And this is my first public announcement that this was, until this week, the biggest, highest masted sailing yacht sloop ever designed. Just got beaten by some pain in the neck guy that wants a 1 meter higher mast. Anyway, but this is another Ron Holland first, if you like, is this is the biggest sail ever built. This is a 200-foot sloop built by Perini in Italy, and that's the biggest sail ever built. Bigger than Mirabella, because we didn't have a spinnaker on Mirabella. We didn't have the guts to try it. So this is a 200-foot aluminum sloop, and this is me now showing off about having written the story, and very proud to have done a very elegant book with lots of these kind of stories in it. Here I am sitting in one of the first 100-footer I ever designed, actually. I'm sitting in here. And so I'm very happy to have donated one of these books. By the way, it's available next door to the club. The Books on the Bay people carry this book, which I'm happy to plug for them. This copy is with the club for some kind of youth thing that we'll decide what's the best use of it. But I like that idea to being able to link my life with some sort of youth sailing event. Another San Francisco influence is Mary Crowley's Ocean Voyages, who gets a small donation from each book we sell. It's about plastic in the ocean. And when we raced Spirit in 71 or whenever it was, to Tahiti, we were pretty diligent about not throwing stuff over the side. And that was a challenge because in a 8-foot wide, 33-foot long flush deck yacht, you haven't got much room for putting garbage. So we kind of slept with the garbage at the end of that 23 days. So I would say we were not as conscious of plastic in the ocean as we are and need to be today. And I'm happy to be involved with Mary Crowley's Ocean Voyages Plastic in the Ocean Cleanup Initiative. That's it. I want to leave room for a few questions in case. Now, the questions, I've done a few of these shows over the last years, and a few times we have had not one question. And the other extreme was Royal Vancouver Yacht Club. 2 hours of question and answer. I mean, after 2 hours, I went, guys, I'm quitting. I'm going to the bar. I got to have a beer. So you never know what to expect with this question thing. But I'm happy to talk about anything except yacht design.
Well, Ron, that is a good one. We do have some questions already, and I'm going to call on everybody one at a time. And when I call on you, please unmute and ask your question directly to Ron. That way we can see you at the same time. So, Mr. Kowalski, I think you were first in line. Go ahead.
Full screen?
Ron, my question is this, similar to professional sports teams in major categories in the United States, baseball, hockey, football, and now Formula One racing across the globe. Is there any chance of limiting the costs of America's Cup racing so you're going to have more syndicates involved? Is that a possibility?
It's possible, but it's not desirable. This is America's Cup, for God's sake. It's always been about 2 rich guys fighting each other in a yacht race. Now, when New Zealand went to Fremantle for the Cup, it was the biggest fleet ever to assemble, and it was fantastic racing. It was wonderful. But I actually aren't an advocate of trying to get everyone involved in the America's Cup. I'm happy with just 2 boats out there at the highest level of technology fighting it out. Maybe I'm mean to say that, but I couldn't really get on board with the Russell Coots, Larry Ellison goal of having a lot more America's Cup competitors. 2 boats on the bay. What more do you want? Sorry, I could go on for an hour on this, but you could be very bored.
Thanks, Ron. Suni Peterson, you have a question? Please unmute yourself.
Yes, I noticed that whenever the cup changed hands, it was usually the newest boat, the one that won, came out with a new keel. So I'm wondering how important the keel is to the speed of the boat, and how does that transfer to the current version of boats with foils?
Well, there's two ways to answer this. One way is about real yacht design, and the other way is about foils. You realize America's Cup boats don't have keels anymore. They've got bloody wings that lift them right out of the water and go 5 times faster. So the keel, this is a great part of yachting history, because when the Australians went for the 3rd or 4th time to try and win the America's Cup from the Americans, it was very much influenced by innovative keel design. And there was a lot of discussion about the legality, the fairness, about this tricky keel. So it's an absolutely valid question. And again, I could go on all night about keels, but the America actually didn't have a keel. It was just looked like kind of a cargo ship. So keels have become the most sophisticated aspect of sailing. And if you look at these moths sailing around, lifted out of the water by the wings of their keel, that's the ultimate expression of, if you take keels to the limit of what's possible, they lift the boat out of the water and you accelerate like crazy.
Going to the next question from Kevin Smith. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, this is Kevin Smith. I teach computer graphics at San Jose State, and I was interested in hearing about some of the limitations in using a computer for yacht design. And by the way, I have one of your boats. I have an Ericsson 33 in Sausalito.
So, I mean, I don't see a limitation, even though I might be expected to comment that way inclined, because I'm the only yacht designer I know that actually doesn't know how to do a computer design. I don't see a limitation. The marriage of technology and art together is the best way to create the best design. And I don't know, that might be true for buildings, airplanes, but it's certainly true for yachts. The boats are better with computer-aided design because the builder gets a lot more and a lot more accurate information. When I look at my original drawings, I go, oh my, how could they build a boat off this? It's terrible compared to what we deliver now, precise, millimeter accurate drawings. So I see computer, oh God, I can tell you some stories about. So I'm going to tell you this story. Sorry to everyone. It's going to take 10 minutes, but you got to put up with it. In the end of the 70s, the boss of the Volvo car company commissioned me to design a little racing one-tonner. His name is Per Gyllenhammar, and he was a very well-known guy in Sweden, as you can imagine. So it was a very important commission for me. And Gyllenhammar came to my design studio in Ireland via his Falcon 10 jet. And during the discussion about designing him a one-tonner, he said, would you be interested in seeing the Volvo Design Center in Gothenburg? I went, oh my God, you don't get those invitations every day. This is car design secrecy. So through this contact, I ended up in Gothenburg in Sweden. And at the Volvo Car Design Center. And Volvo were the first car manufacturers to use computer-aided design. So they were ahead of the Yanks. So it's a big deal, anyway, to go there. And Gillingham said to me, why don't you use computers? I'm going, because you can't get one for $1 million. It's impossible. So I go to Gothenburg and I walk into this aircraft hangar-sized building in the Volvo facility. And in this very big open shed, there is quite a few different car models being made. And the traditional way to create the shaping of a cars was with clay modeling. They build a full-size sculpture of the car. So I go into this big shed and there's a bunch of these models on display, being worked on, being built. But at the end of the hall, there's a drawing on the wall of a full-size car with sections of about an inch. And everything was on this drawing: spark plugs, wires, washers, nuts, bolts. And I just looked at it and said, my God, this is what we're going to design yacht. This is yacht design. We're going to get. How do you get this? This is the way to design. Now, I think the automobile car companies were ahead of the aerospace guys at this stage. So this was serious. I forget why I'm telling you this story. It must be about computers. But that's how it started for me. It was 1970. And we were not the first yacht designers. There's a couple of French guys were ahead of me, but we were pretty far ahead of most other people on this computer-aided design. And the designs got better because we could have more design freedom with a higher level of accuracy. So I certainly don't see a limitation. Sorry to bring it back to your original comment and question. It's all advantage so long as you don't forget about aesthetics. Because when you design a yacht without aesthetics, it looks like crap. Because the computer makes it worse than if you did it by hand. Sorry, guys, but anyway, I'll try to be shorter with the next question.
No, keep it coming, Ron. Keep it coming. Next question. John, do you want to ask your second question of the night?
Yeah, I'll ask if there's room for a second one. And first, I wanted to say also, Ron, I bought your big, beautiful coffee table book and threw it on my coffee table with my other coffee table books. But then I actually read a coffee, and it was a great read. So you never read coffee table books, but I did, and it was really a good book. But
thank you, John.
My question for you is the America's Cup Kiwis have won in all kinds of different boats, but if you were to run the next cup and choose a design, what kind of boats do you like watching in the America's Cup? Keels or foils or what?
That is such a tough question because when the cup went to catamarans, I was a very high profile, ridiculous, bloody stupid boats for the cup. It'll never be as good as J boats or 12 meters. And then because I'm trying to keep an open mind, I end up in San Francisco. Well, when you see those two catamarans getting ready for the start with closing speeds of 50 miles an hour, I'm going, oh my God, I missed the point. Just because the boats look funny and don't look like J-class boats, the most beautiful boats ever designed probably, doesn't mean it's not a valid design for the America's Cup. And then, of course, the Kiwis get a chance to do whatever they want to do, and they come up with what happened last time, which is a flying sailboat. So I'm interested. I was in San Francisco, I was in Bermuda, and I'm in Auckland. I don't know how to answer this question. I was very sympathetic with the old farts comment about it's not real yacht racing, you can't do match racing, you can't. But I think America's Cup is one area where pushing the limits of technology as well as tradition is part of the game. I don't know what, I mean, the Kiwis have made a statement. They're going to keep these flying multi-hulls for a couple more rounds of the Cup, because they're all trying to get more people and more entries. And I've already said I don't care about that. But if someone said to me, let's force them to race the next America's Cup in J-class yachts. Well, 5 years ago, I might have said, good idea. Now, I'm not so sure. I think let the young guys push the technology to the limits and let it fall where it may. It's America's Cup. You don't have to call it real sailing. It's just America's Cup. Unique, one-off every 4 years. And who can afford it?
Thanks, Ron. Let's go to Roderick Bauer. You have a statement you'd like to share with Ron?
Well, hi, Ron. It's really just a comment. I just wanted to say that I chartered a Swan 441 in Seattle, and I was extremely impressed with the boat. It was a beautiful boat to sail. I was out with, we had like over a dozen people on the deck. People were holding on everywhere. And I had the rail buried in the water, and I could steer the boat with one finger on the wheel, which I was showing everybody. It was just a beautiful, beautiful boat. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. Doesn't matter how old you get, you still like to hear compliments. But I'd like to say that the use of that design built by Swan in Finland, it came about because it was actually a one-off IOR Admiral's Cup fasted race design that Swan put into a series production. So that was for a while in the late 70s, early 80s. That was a very big part of the yacht design business. You do a race boat, you win races, and you get the boat builders building a bunch of boats and people buying those boats. That was an important part. Still is, I guess. It just didn't happen to me because some people said, I want to do 100-footer. Would you be interested? Well, I went, yes. So I ended up doing over 100-foot boats, not Swan type boats anymore.
Okay. Moving on, Samuel, you have a question for Ron? Samuel, can you unmute yourself? There you go.
Oh, here we go. Hi, I'm Samuel Becky in San Diego, and I actually own a 441. So thank you very much, and boy, we really appreciate that boat. It's a wonderful boat. My question was about the CAD cam thing, and you covered it pretty nicely. I think you mentioned in your book you used Intergraph back in the day. So I guess an expansion on that question would be what CAD cam software, what design software do you use nowadays?
It's evolved, and when we started, there were no yacht design programs. When I first went, this was back to the car story again. Do you mind wasting 5 more minutes about this history of computer-aided design?
Please, Ron.
So I'm at the Volvo factory, and I'm going, oh my God, this is the way you got to design boats. How the hell are we going to do this? The Volvo chairman, my client, said, Ron, leave this with me. I'm going to get you a computer. He rings Huntsville, Alabama, where Intergraph originate and is being manufactured. And he talks to a guy called Jim Medlock, who's the boss of the owner of Intergraph. Now, Intergraph, they're in Huntsville, Alabama, because that's where Werner von Braun was taken after the Second World War to create the space program. The whole computer-aided design thing started with three-dimensional navigation for the moon. That was the beginning of, hey, let's use computers, more seriously. And so Intergraph were at the leading edge of this American attempt to beat the Russians to the moon. And that's why I end up in Huntsville, Alabama. Now, Per Gillenhammer did a great sales job on Medlock, because when he got off the phone, he said, they're going to get you a computer. I don't know how the hell they're going to do it, but they're going to do it. And the reality was that we actually had the Irish government help too, because we had the first real computer in Ireland. So it was a very complicated deal, but we got one of these bloody $1 million, well, it wasn't a million then, but it was like, I think $300,000 or $400,000 computer, which we couldn't pay for that. Hey, Yacht Design, we do okay, we don't do that good. So, oh God, now I lost I'm too excited to tell you these stories. I lose track, but hey, for people say it's never boring. God, it's important to me, but it's not boring. So I end up getting, that's how, although I was particularly going to talk about the software. So we didn't have, there was no one doing yacht design software. When I went to Huntsville, Alabama, to the Intergraph Corporation, I was introduced to an Italian guy whose name is Attilio Ramoldi. He worked for Porsche, and Porsche had bought one of these computers to do these surface shaping of the next generation of cars. So this didn't exist. They didn't need this for the moonshot. The Italian guy at Huntsville, Alabama, was writing the code to create the ability to manipulate fair surfaces. So we really did look at this subject at the very early days and ended up through luck getting one of these machines in Ireland, 1970. Sorry if it take a bit longer. Okay, I want to tell you another, you're going to love this. This is really important for this show. So years later, I reflect on my visit to Huntsville, Alabama. And I'm reflecting on the visit because there's an interesting documentary about a recording studio down the road from Huntsville, Alabama. We're very famous, popular recording studio. I could spend an hour on this too. But the punchline is, that week I was in Huntsville, Alabama, trying to figure out a way to get a computer to Ireland. The Beatles and the Stones were down the road at that recording studio. That's serious stuff. I tell you, that's important. You got to know that. I'm glad I was able to tell you that. I'm going to tell you another San Francisco story. So I'm living with the Cascaden family in Divisadero Street, just up from the marina. And I can't believe I'm telling this story. You were not expecting this in your wildest dreams. I can't resist. So I read that Jimmy Hendrix is going to be at the Berkeley Community Center that night. And I remember over dinner, 6 o'clock in the evening, saying to the Cascadens, God, I would love to see Hendrix. So Lillian Cascaden says to me, take the car, go. You serious? Yeah, that's 21-year-old Kiwi kid. She doesn't even know if I can drive. So I get in the car and go across the Bay Bridge and end up at the Berkeley Community Center. Now, there's tons of people there. It's a hell of a crowd. Hey, this is the 60s, guys, if you remember. So I'm totally intimidated by the crowd. And, the thing sold out officially. And there's scalpers offering tickets. I'm going, I know I'm going to get screwed here. So it's getting down to like 10 minutes before the concert starts. And I go, I'm going to buy a ticket. I'm going to give this a chance. So I get my ticket off some scalper. The story is, I'm not going to charge you extra. I just want to get rid of these tickets because my friends didn't show up. I go in 3rd row from the front center stage. Hey guys, I got burnt by Hendrix's lighter fluid on his guitar. Hey, San Francisco, it was a big part of my life. I got to tell you that story. Sorry. Sorry, John. Is that part of your question?
That was a great story, Ron. Let's go to Tom Kowalski. You have one last question there, and I think it's a great question to ask.
Well, Ron, one comment and a question. You're right. We all love compliments, and I want to compliment you. You've been so very kind and generous to the Sausalito Yacht Club, and it's a pleasure to have you as a member. It really is. But my question is this: in all your years of design, what big mistakes have you made? I mean, what would you look at? I mean, maybe we'll be here till midnight, but
how long do you got? That's
exactly. How about one or two? How's that sound?
I'll give you a beauty.
Okay.
I got a beauty. No, I don't have many, thank God. But at the end of my racing career, the boats are getting bigger, and I'm pretty keen to say yes to these opportunities. And an American Texas client who had one of my quarter hunters, so you got to start at the bottom, work your way up. I'll tell you, Bob Chilton, his name is. He's a bloody good sailor from Dallas. He got too old and too rich for his quarter tonner. So he orders a 75-foot cruising yacht. And it seems amazing to say this now. We had 5 of them building it in a few months. Imagine. Well, they were the biggest sailing yachts I had ever imagined. And we just had like 5 or 6 of these things building. Things were hectic. And we're still trying to click onto the IOR racing boats. There's 15 people working for me, and life's exciting. So, okay, the big mistakes. This is the biggie. This is a serious biggie. So I'm so busy, I don't even go to the launching in Antibes of this 76-footer. I can't. I go to the launching of all my boats. I just think we were so damn busy. So the French builder rings me up. Ron, we have a problem. I'm not going to do this French accent in front of all you Americans. The problem is, he says, the boat is floating 1 meter up in the bow. And I'm going, you mean 1 inch? Because we're bloody good at this. No, 1 meter. 1 meter up at the bow, for God's sake. I said, hang on, I'm going to go get the drawing. So the drawings for this boat was in the top drawer of a big classic drawing chest. Two hands pull the door open. And the keel drawing is the first drawing. It's a profile of the boat with the keel showing where the lead ballast is in the keel. There was a aluminum frame and you pour lead inside. And I opened this drawing and, oh my God, the lead is at the opposite end of the keel where it should have been. Like if I'd have just looked at the bloody drawing, come on. So yeah, I can see why the boat's a meter out of trim. God. I'm on the next plane to Antibes. How do you explain to your client? I think I went to the boat before I called him. It's all hazy now. It was such a horrific experience. I go to the Antibes, and we already agreed that we're going to pull the boat out so I can see it out of the water. And I drive down from Nice to the dock at Antibes. The builders have the boat out of the water, and half of the French yachting contingent are all there standing looking at this huge, I can only say, fuck up. So I stayed in Antibes that week with the builders, and we cut holes in the aluminum keel shell and melted the lead out onto the ground, heated it up again and poured it in the other end of the keel in front of all these guys. Well, it was very embarrassing. But the owner, 6 months later, commissioned me to design one of my first 100-foot yachts. So I just reacted, however, to do with the way I was brought up in New Zealand. I don't know. Anyway, the way I reacted got me a huge commission from a very grateful guy that could have sued my ass if he'd have decided to, if I'd been not the guy I was. Is that a big enough fuck up for you?
I'd say that's pretty big, but I'd say it's a great story. And I'd say you're a very honest man. Thank you.
It doesn't happen very often. We're pretty good at this lead thing now.
Bravo, bravo.
Well, Tom, I think we're pretty much done with questions. Just a couple of housekeeping duties. Ron, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your time with us. And like you mentioned earlier, we do have copies of your book right next to the club at Sausalito Books by the Book Bay. And all club members get a discount. Just show your card.
Absolutely.
And the team down there with Cheryl will take care of you. Tom, you want to close us out with Ron?
Well, Ron, once again, thank you, Russell. Ron, once again, it's a pleasure to have you speak. We wish you could speak with us directly at Sausalito. When you do come back down to Sausalito, the door's open. You remember, we'll have dinners, drinks, brunches, but we'd love to see you. And you are a true asset to the sailing community, racing community. And sir, we thank you for your time and efforts. Our best.
May I just, sorry, now you got me going. I've got to keep going. But I would like to just say a few words. George Cascadden, Commodore Tompkins, Skip Allen, Dave Wally, Hank Easom, Myron Spalding, and the schooner Wanda Wanderer, and Wanderbird. Thank you.
Well
Did I
said.
say
sir.
Commodore Tompkins too?
Well said, sir. Take care.